Welcome to episode 32 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And we're all so terrified of coronavirus that the three of us on this episode are not even just in different rooms. We're in different states.
Geographic states and states of mind.
That's right.
And I'm Don Guillory, co-host of the podcast, historian, author, educator, and as of February 29th, a TEDx alumni. Yeah, and I'm not scared of coronavirus.
Neither am I, but I needed to say something. Joining us today is Allison Lovecraft, one of our friends that we met at
Yay!
Phoenix Fan Fusion last year. And I basically stalked Allison down and made her be on this episode. So thank you for joining us.
You did. But I'm glad you did, because I'm happy we're doing this movie, actually.
Fantastic. So tell us a bit about yourself, and then we'll get into all that.
All right. Well, as you said, I'm Allison Lovecraft. I actually live in Las Vegas, Nevada. My husband and I run Esoteric Order of Greek Geekdom and Horror Fiends here in Las Vegas. So if you are into horror or anything geeky, find us, follow us, do all that stuff. We also will there is a horror convention coming up called Days of the Dead that we will be hosting the official after party on at the Nerd. We do horror trivia. We'll be doing trivia there, as well as karaoke and some other stuff. And then obviously, if you're a fan of horror, go to Days of the Dead. They're going to have like Heather Langenkamp and Joe Bob Briggs and Danny Trejo and all these people, and we'll be there. So that's all cool, good stuff. Esoteric
Awesome.
Order of Geekdom. Yeah.
So your husband Ian was on a few episodes ago. He did Last House on the Left, and we had a great time. He kind of gave us a little bit of a rundown of your horror group there, but do you want to just kind of maybe give us a little background on it? Like, how did you guys start this, and like what sort of events do you do?
It all started because we, as horror fans, noticed that the horror community in Vegas was a little fractured. There was events that we would find out at last minute, and I'm like, why didn't we know about this? Why isn't there advertising? Well, it's just because this group of people knew about it and this group of people didn't, and that kind of thing. We're like, well, let's see if we can start a group that kind of brings everybody together and supports. So we started it about a year and a half ago. We started just doing with like some meetups and things, and then we started doing horror trivia after we met Rebecca McKendry. She was like, yeah, like at one of her panels there at Phoenix, actually, we talked to her about it, and because she does horror trivia in LA, and she was like, if you want to do it, just do it. And so we're like, all right, well, let's just do it. So we've been doing that actually about every 6 weeks here in Vegas. And then we started just kind of branching out, reaching out to different horror communities, Sin City Horror Fest, and Drew Lipson, who's like really popular here, and Tom Devlin, and all these people. And like, hey, let's kind of promote each other's things, and like different like horror toy stores and stuff. And that's kind of what we've been doing. We're just trying to bring some community to the horror scene here.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, I wanted to do Days of the Dead, but it didn't work out. I'm already at another convention that weekend, but I'm really I was already really sad before you guys were involved. And then when Ian told me that, I was like, no, what have I done? But I'll still have a great time at the other convention, but hopefully I can work it out in the future. I've been desperately trying to get to a horror con in Vegas, and it hasn't worked out so far. So we'll see, I guess. All right. So normally this is where I ask, why'd you pick this film? But you didn't pick the film. I did. And then I said, please, please, please come talk about this with us. So neither of us had even seen the film yet when we talked about doing this and decided we were going to do it. We knew what was in the trailer. And for me, that was plenty. I was like, we have to do this movie. Like with the Me Too movement going on, and with just domestic violence is such an important cause to me. Like, I've worked with survivors for about 10 years now. This was just a guaranteed, I have to do this episode. Tell me why you were like, yes, let's do this. Like, what was it about it that made you want to jump in?
I had wanted to see, just based on the trailers, I know we were already planning on seeing the movie. It wasn't something that like I was forced into seeing or anything like that. And I do like the story of the Invisible Man. Like I've seen several adaptations of it, even ones that weren't great. Like even when I think when you messaged me, I was like, the new one or like Hollow Man, because I know that one's like that one gets really dicey too, and so when you're like, no, the new one, I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna watch it. And honestly, I had good expectations, but I feel like my expectations were pretty much exceeded throughout the entire movie. So that was really good.
I agree with that. It blew away my expectations. Yeah. I'm a huge Lee Wanell mark as it is. Anything he does, I want to watch it. I want to know what he's doing. I love the guy. So as soon as I found out it was his baby, like, I was all over this anyway. Elizabeth Moss's performance, just fucking fantastic. Wow. Like, she can outact people with her face with no one in the room. It's crazy, and we're going to get to spoilers in a bit, but I'll let Don yell spoiler alert. But no, everything about this movie, for my little tiny gripes, are so inconsequential. Everybody needs to go see this film. So Don, what about you?
If you are listening to this episode at this moment, this is your spoiler alert. You should stop now. Okay, you're still here. All right. No, what I liked about it was, you and I have had this discussion before, and had this discussion with my students and even other conventions and panels. This idea of invisibility, because there's always been this debate of, what superpower would you get if you could only choose between flight and invisibility? And I always tell people, if the person says invisibility, do not trust that motherfucker. And not when I'm teaching, I don't say that. But my students are, always like, well, what do you mean invisible? I said, if someone chooses to be invisible, they're choosing anonymity. When you have anonymity, people are willing to do whatever the hell they want because they know there are no consequences, or at least the chance of consequences is minimized, because we can't nail down who did it. Somebody didn't see you do it. They have no idea where you are. 30 years ago when we had movies like Porky's, this will be my one Porky's reference for the month. The way that they capture this, I guess, this innocent look at the 1950s, or this, I guess, this rose-colored look at the 1950s, as far as, these guys are just sneaking in under the school and they're opening up the valves and checking out the girls in the locker room while they're showering because they want to see the girls naked. They're doing that because they know no one's going to see them down there, and the consequences for them getting caught, they feel is worth the risk, right? So when people talk about this idea of, oh, you could be invisible, you can go anywhere, it quickly descends into some really dark shit, which involves, in a lot of cases, like you see with this film, abuse, psychological abuse and trauma and violence. Or in films like Hollow Man, there's an aspect of, hey, I could never get this chick when she could see me. You know what? I'm invisible now, so I'm going to go across the street and rape her. Which, again, it becomes one of those moments, especially in movie history, where you see how this guy, or the question then becomes, does this guy become that way because he has this power now, or was he always capable of doing this or willing to do this? It's just he needed that extra edge of being invisible in order to pull it off. Whereas in this film, that's not what the guy's doing, or at least the villain is doing. He's abusing this woman for a while before he ever becomes invisible to abuse her some more. So it just becomes this constant stream of spousal or partner abuse. And now he ramps it up because he fakes his death. Spoiler alert. fakes his death with the help of his brother, and they continue to terrorize this young lady because they want to have some control over her. So if you choose invisibility, do some soul searching.
Sorry, this will take 1 second, I promise. I just want to say, I think back to like high school, and every guy I knew said that exact thing. Oh, if I was invisible, I could go in the girls' locker room. So that's crazy how like universal that is. Anyway, Go ahead, Allison. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I think it's interesting that you brought that up, because if you look at like previous adaptations of The Invisible Man, they were always normal people who got like a serum or something like that and then became a monster. This is like I think this is the first one where he was already a monster.
Right.
And he just got more capable of being a monster.
Wow, you're right. I can't think of any others.
No, they were all normal. Yeah.
Wow.
Because even in the Chevy Chase one, it was what, an accident when he became invisible? But, as bad of a movie as that was, you never see him exercising like, hey, I'm going to go steal some shit. I'm going to go do something. It's this quest of trying to get back to being normal. And the only time he really does anything questionable, it's for survival. And that's pretty much it. But, the Hollow Man and other adaptations, yeah, it's now I have this freedom that comes with it. Let me see what I can get away with.
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting how, as a culture, we examined that. Like, previously, getting that anonymity, like, it gave people the freedom to be horrible. And It shows like, oh, underneath mankind, humanity is terrible. Whereas this is showing, no, mankind's already terrible. Regardless of their ability to be invisible or not, they're terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just shows a really big change in kind of how we're putting horror out there, putting monsters out there, that like it's not, you're not becoming a monster. It's the monsters that are already there that you really have to watch out for.
I like that a lot. Even like the opening scene of this film where she's laying in bed, I love this shot because you can't see him. Mm-hmm. He's right there. Mm-hmm. And as they pan up and you see his hand and then you see his body laying there, oh my God, I loved that shot. Like that, 5 seconds is so fucking deep. It's how in control he is, how a part of her he is. And then, of course, all the symbolism of what's about to come. But, like, he has his arm over her. He's controlling her even in her sleep. Yeah. You know? Like, so much stuff happening right there. And when you say, like, the human's already a monster, like, that's captured, like, it doesn't feel romantic to me in this shot. And I don't know if that's because I was already prepped for what the movie is. Like, if I didn't know, would I think it's romantic that he has his arm around her? I don't know. But it didn't feel that way to me. There was something different about it.
I think that's because of the shot right before that is the waves crashing on the rocks. And it brings such intensity, like those couple of seconds of the waves against the rocks behind his house, like that sets a mood of like, this is like, something's not right.
Right.
And then it leads into that shot of her laying in bed and you're like, oh, and that ominousness of those waves, like those waves are terrifying. The way that they were crashing was so hard and so intense that it brought it into that next scene. And that was the thing, like Wanell did an amazing job setting up this whole beginning intro. There's so many tiny subtle things that Cecilia's character does that I don't know if people who aren't abuse victims recognize them as signs of abuse, but there was so many tiny little things in the way that she moved or the way that she did certain things, like the way that she walked, that immediately I was like, oh, immediate recognition of this is an abused woman, like without words, without anything, but just within seconds, you got it.
Even the jolting of her head, like it's not a normal, like you hear a noise head jolt, you know? It's that paranoid, I know he's watching me look, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I mean. Her performance just blew me the fuck away. It was so great. When you say the little red flags that people might not notice if they haven't been in the situation. I don't pretend to have experienced that or fully understand it. I've spent 10 years listening to stories of people who have been extremely abused. And from my point of view, this movie like hit so many of those notes that it was ripping me up in the theater. And I can't even imagine how it feels if you've lived through it and you're watching this.
Absolutely. Just the way she takes a step, the way that her foot hits the ground, of that soft padding at the tip first, then slowly rolling back. Like, that's not like a I'm just trying to be quiet walk. That's a my life depends on being quiet walk.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I thought was really, really telling and really powerful was the use of the camera. Because at one moment where, you know, she's getting dressed in the hoodie and prepping herself to get out of the house, that camera pans back over to the bedroom, almost as if you're the invisible person or the fly on the wall in that room or in that house, looking down the hallway, and you're like, oh shit, he's up. Mm-hmm. And as I was watching, I was like, holy shit, that's what she's thinking. And I was thinking that was such a great way to do it, because I'm expecting him to start walking towards her at that moment. And then it pans back to her, and she's still getting ready. And it fully puts you in her mindset as far as that fear that's been so ingrained in her, as far as not just this guy controlling her, but this guy reacting to whatever she's trying to do. You know, if it's, you know, she prepared a meal the wrong way, or as she gets into later, how she doesn't look pretty, or her weight, or what she's eating, or, you know, all these things that abusers do, you know, without even putting a hand on somebody, the way they're able to control so many things about them, which I found very impressive, because that made me so much more concerned about her. And you never had to have a moment where, oh, I just saw him smack her, or I just saw him kick her or push her down the stairs or anything like that. The first violence, or at least this idea of violence that you see, is when she's getting away and he punches the side window, or the passenger side window, when she's trying to get away. But even then, you know, I've seen that abuse, and heard of stories of that type of abuse, and it wasn't as simple as, oh, the person hit the window and you know, was trying to get at me. I was expecting him to like pull her out of the car, you know, just to fully drive you into this, holy shit, he's going to kill her because she escaped, she got away from him.
Yeah, I really like that he didn't show abuse. He didn't have to.
Right.
It wasn't necessary, which is great, because I think it opens it up so that more people are able to then maybe watch the movie who wouldn't have been able to previously.
Yeah.
If that scene had been in it. And it feels so much like, I feel like whatever we as an audience can think he is, based on her reactions alone,
right,
is more than what he could have possibly shown. I'm certain.
I think it would have also really brought it down for the single most violent act to me is not a bloody murder. All right. There's no blood. It's when he hits the young girl.
Right. Right.
And if you had already seen the abuse scenes, I don't feel like that moment would have the fucking impact that it does. Yeah. And I was braced for it. I was like, it's fucking coming. This is the perfect time for it. And it still like jolted the fuck out of me, you know? So when you say like they didn't show it, I think that it works on multiple levels with that, because it does strengthen when he does start attacking. You know what I mean? And you're still really not seeing it because he's invisible. Right.
You're just seeing the impact. And that's a lot of times that's how it is with abuse victims, is you don't see it. It's so hidden that you're not going to see it. You're barely going to see the impact if it's, you know what I mean? Like if it's hidden well, it's so hard to even pick up on the impact. So it makes the impact even that much more important.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point, Allison, as far as like, one, having it this way so people who weren't going to see the film, or might not have seen the film if it had been more violent, are going to see this film. But I think it's also helpful for victims of violence, domestic violence, to actually have this understanding that it doesn't have to be, or at least people who haven't seen it before, to understand that violence itself and abusive relationships don't have to be around, abusive relationships don't have to be about just physical violence.
Right.
There's that emotional and psychological trauma and violence and abuse that takes place as well. And we've kind of conditioned ourselves, and especially up until recent years, where we convince people, or we're convinced by people, that, oh, it's not abuse. I mean, he didn't hit her.
Right.
Or it's not abuse. He didn't. He just told her to, eat a salad. There are all these things that people look at and say, well, that wasn't really abuse. And now you're starting to understand, hell yeah, it was. It was. Oh, who are you talking to? You know what? I think you should come to bed right now, or somebody going through your phone or controlling where you go. Like that's abuse.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really new concept just in general for emotional or mental abuse to be an issue. Physical abuse has been portrayed for forever, and it's not until recently that people have really started to focus on these tiny little things of control that build upon each other, and eventually you lose yourself.
Right.
I just want to point out to our listeners right now, if any of you are the kind of person that goes through someone else's phone, there's only one possible thing that will come from that. It's not multiples. It's one answer. If you find something, it's going to be the end of your world, because it proves everything you just thought, right? And if you don't find anything, you're going to think they're fucking hiding it. And it's going to do the same fucking thing. And in the end, you're going to end up in the same place. So if you're that person that's searching through someone's phone, just stop. You're already at the breaking point. You don't need your proof.
Yeah, you're already done. The trust is gone completely.
I've never understood that concept of like, just tell me why, or why do you like her better than me? Like, all you're doing is hurting yourself. Like, if you're at that point, walk the fuck away, man. Anyway.
Oh, don't worry, James. I'll have my rant later, so don't feel you're alone.
Sweet. Well, yeah. So when we were talking about doing this episode, I'm going to switch gears for just a second, just because I want to keep building on what a monster this asshole is.
Yeah.
And Allison, I'm going to let you do this whole thing because you blew my mind when you were telling me about it. So,
Okay.
Talk me through the animal abuse that's very evident even when they don't show it.
Okay, so this was one of the things that really got me, because I love animals. I have such a soft heart for animals. And the moment I saw that when she kicks the dog bowl, I said, "Oh no, there's an animal." And I was braced for it. I was like, he's such a piece of shit. There's no way he doesn't take control of his animal the way that he takes control of his woman. You know what I mean? And so the first sign you get is very obvious, and it is the shock collar that she has to take off of the dog. And anybody that puts a shock collar on the dog deserves to fucking die. That's just my opinion, but fuck them. The next one is when she is at the house and the dog comes in and he's trying to attack her in the suit. And the dog comes in and he's barking and he gets between her and Adrian. And this poor dog has to fight against all of its conditioning of abuse to try and protect this one person who was kind to it, who took the shock collar off, who probably was the only one that cared for it, showed it affection, because for him, this dog was a tool. I think it's a Doberman, right?
Right.
It's an attack dog. It's a security. It's a tool. It's not a pet for him. So the dog, and then there's another scene where she's in the workshop where the dog's kind of trotting behind her, following behind. It gets to the landing of the workshop and it stops, dead in its tracks, and it whines because it wants to go with her, but it's been so conditioned to not be in his workshop that there is nothing that would make that dog go down there.
And it's only like 2 steps.
It is. It's 2 steps.
And I love that.
And it's so crazy how you can see the amount of abuse he's already instilled in this animal to quote unquote train it. Mm-hmm. That's completely unnecessary for training an animal. And I just feel like it pumps up his shittiness.
Yeah, because he's not training, he's controlling, like you said.
Yeah.
God, man, like, so what I love so much about your analysis of this is that it goes back to everything you're talking about with not seeing the abuse. But we're seeing all the signs of it. We're seeing the aftermath, whether it's with her or the dog or the brother or probably anyone this asshole ever interacted with, apparently.
Yeah.
And, I think that's such a strength on Lee Whannell's part writing this, to have, like, he didn't take the easy route and show it to us. Right. He didn't have a flashback where the guy is beating the dog, or like when she arrived at the house, she didn't have to feed the dog. He's still giving it food. So it's not that he's completely neglecting it, but it's very obvious that he's, like you said, using him as a tool, as security, as whatever else. And I think that that's where Lee really shines in the writing of this film, is everything's about the aftermath and the repercussions instead of the actual abuse.
Right. And I feel like with it, every single shot and scene is so purposefully done that you can get those little pieces that you can put together as this is what he's doing. You don't have to see it because you know in your head, based on these little tiny things, shot for shot, that have created the story about him. He's in 3 scenes in the whole movie. Did you know that he's in the beginning scene, like when she's at the house and he runs her down? He's when they find him in the basement, and then at the end, he's in 3 scenes. But I know enough about him to know that he's a piece of shit. Like, I don't need him in anything else in the movie.
Yeah.
To know exactly who his character is.
Man, that's crazy. I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah.
And, what you're saying with the different scenes, like telling the story, I think that's another strength where the writer was able to direct it. That's not always a good idea. You have to be talented enough to do both effectively. Yeah. But in this situation, I think it really helps this film that the writer was the director as well.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Where do we guys want to go next?
Ooh. I personally want to talk about enabling, and I guess this might end up becoming a rant as well. Okay. I mean, because we can skip forward and I guess skip backwards. But typically when you have a situation or a problem, no matter what the problem is, you might have a vice that you hold on to, or just some type of compulsive behavior. And a lot of times there's somebody who enables it. Either actively or inactively, as far as like not stepping in. But the brother, to me, I think might even be more of a piece of shit than the abuser, because of the way he excuses things. And you and I talked about this, James. As soon as the brother appears, I'm like, this motherfucker is going to be in on everything, because he's aware, and they make it clear that the brother knows that Adrian has been abusing Cecilia, and it's kind of like, yeah, he abused me too. He knows how to control people, but hey, he's gone, he's dead. It's awesome. Take your money. And at that moment, I realized, like, he's been doing this, but you're not willing to step in and prevent it from happening. At least speaking up on her behalf. Even if it was a brother who had been, tormented by his older brother, and for them to still be that close, I found suspicious. But throughout the film, you start to realize the brother is in on, Adrian's ruse that he's dead, and, they're still tormenting Cecilia and going around and attacking her and trying to isolate her from family and friends, and eventually get her locked up into a mental health facility. And with this film, I think they do it brilliantly to show how the brother is there. So you start to question, is he the one who's doing this, or is he just helping, or is it both? But you see that even just like with the abuse that Adrian is pulling with Cecilia or committing against Cecilia, that the brother's way of impacting or at least assisting his brother with whatever it is has been going on longer than when he shows up to read the will and pass on the estate to her. It seems as though it's a pattern of behavior with him as well, to where it's kind of like, it's happened before. Just take the money, deal with it. You don't have to see him anymore, but understanding that I'm going to play with you as well to make you feel safe. So I know where you are. I know how to get in contact with you. I know how to find you so that I can let Adrian know where you are so he can continue to torment and harass you. Because there's not a moment in this film, which again, it's expertly done by the writer-director, that I ever feel that she's safe. Even when she's with friends and family away from her abuser, I never feel as though she's safe because somebody knows where she is. Somebody who should know where she is knows where she is. And that brother is just, again, he's a piece of shit, and probably a bigger piece of shit than Adrian, because he's enabling this and prolonging the abuse.
What about Stockholm Syndrome? Do you think that maybe the years and years of abuse from Adrian on the brother has created a relationship between them where he doesn't feel like he can? I'm not trying to. I think he's a piece of shit too. I'm just kind of trying to play devil's advocate here.
I did at first. I did feel as though there might have been a little bit of Stockholm with him, but then it flipped. And again, spoiler alert. It flips when the brother is meeting with Cecilia in the facility and says, you know what? Everything will be fine. Adrian knows you're carrying his baby, so he's not going to hurt you anymore. He just wants you to have the baby and do all these other things. And of course, when you see that Adrian is using one of the suits, it's one of those things that I look at and realize either he has another level to Stockholm Syndrome, or he's been lying about the way that the treatment that Adrian the way Adrian has treated him in order to make her feel safe and secure.
That's what I think it is. Yeah,
I agree. I think that if that conversation had been slightly altered in the writing, if it had been where he had said something along the lines of, hey, you're like, yes, he is still alive and he is still controlling. Like, if you just go along with this, like, that's how we're going to get out of it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
This is how we're, like, if he had a little more empathy and like he was in the same boat as her throughout that conversation, I think it would have pushed the narrative in the other way. And I think that because it didn't have that it was purposely done to not have that he was a piece of shit. Absolutely. I just wanted to see what you thought about that.
Oh, no. Initially, I was thinking, okay, well, he's going along with it because of Stockholm Syndrome. And then, again, I kept asking him. Things were a little too convenient for Adrian. And I just figured, well, maybe he's helping him because it's his brother and he feels that, she did something wrong or whatever, but then he says that he has a conversation with her. I'm like, nope, I'm right. He was a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I know Allison did not agree with this at all because we talked about this earlier. But when I was watching the film, I got the feeling like I was sitting there going, please don't let the twist be that Adrian's dead and the brother's been doing it the whole time. Like, I really started buying into that. I was sitting there and I'm like, he shows him the picture of the body and he's like, I've seen the body. And I'm like, fuck, it's because you killed him. And then when the dog's barking, like the way that you explained it a little bit ago, my initial reaction was that's not his owner and he's barking, right? Like, you guys kind of see how I got there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm literally sitting there going, this better not be the fucking twist because we need the ending where she defeats the abuser. Right. And I don't mean the guy taking over for the abuser. I mean the original abuser. And I was so
moment.
Yes. And like it would still be, you're still overcoming the abuser, but you're not overcoming the abuser, right? And I was sitting in the theater just fucking terrified that that's where this was going, and I'm so glad that it wasn't. But
yeah.
Oh no, go ahead. Go.
Oh, so yeah, I know. The very first time that we meet Tom, the brother or whatever, that meeting, he's so icky. I don't know of
Right.
another way to say it. He's just so icky that I was just like, pretty sure he's in on it. And then by the second meeting where he shows the picture, I was like, nope, he's fully in on it. That's it. Done. Like, he's absolutely in on it. Adrian's still alive. He's helping him. This is their master plan. Yeah.
Yeah, I even told James, I'm getting creepy brother from Get Out feelings with this guy.
No, and that's where I started, like the first time you see him. But then, like, when he did the "I've saw the body," that's when I was like, oh, fuck, please don't be going there. So, yeah, really, really glad that's not where we end up. But, all right, so what do you guys have next?
I thought you had a question. Well, Allison, you go. I think I led the last one. I don't want to jump anybody.
Can we talk about the parts that were not so great?
Sure.
Okay, so what's up with this suit with these unbreakable cameras that you can hit a man with a cast iron pan and it doesn't, pop that pixel out or distort the camera in any way? I don't know. As far as I know, cameras are pretty delicate things. Even with protection, like I don't know that you could hit one with a wrought iron pan and it still work fully. And that the only thing that did seem to disrupt it was a jab with a pen.
It was a super pen.
Yeah.
That's why. So. Yeah.
Well, she found the right scene. So that's what it was.
Oh man.
And it could have worked, honestly, if she had when they first get in their big fight, and it's the first time you're like, oh, he's there, and he's dragging her around, and she hits him with plates and the pan and all of that. If even like one of the cameras had went out, and that was kind of how she was using to track him before he escapes, like it could have played visually so well to have this one spot that was out. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah. Because I do like the glitchy suit. Like, that's a cool effect.
It was really cool at the end. I was like, oh, this looks really cool where it glitches in and out. And, like, there's these pixels that are completely gone. And if that had happened earlier where he had to then repair that one camera and then come back, like, it gave a reason for why he left. Because he had to repair his suit.
And even if, like, he had to try to cover it with his hand or whatever, like
moved so that you couldn't see that one that was out, so the other ones were covered up. And
yeah, no, that's a really good point. But even when I don't remember the teenage girl's name, and I don't have it in front of me. Yes, when she sprays him with the mace. And he, like, slams into the wall in the dresser and shit. Like, you could have popped a couple there, too. What's that?
Why did that affect him also?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like his eyes are out.
No, they're not. So that's what mace is. It's pepper spray. It's capsaicin to, like, mess with your sinuses and your vision. I'm
just guessing it was breathable fabric.
I mean,
it's just the optical cameras or the cameras themselves made those mirrors or made the mirror effect. But, in all honesty, there were a couple of things like that kind of took me out of the film, because when you mention, oh, he gets hit in this and you should be able to see something, I immediately thought about the Aston Martin Vanquish from Die Another Day, the James Bond film with Halle Berry and Pierce Brosnan. Where the car gets shot and then it glimmers a little bit and the camera goes out and you can see the car for a little bit, and I was kind of looking for the same thing. I'm like, if she hit him like that, it should distort the cameras or whatever the device is. But after that, I just figured, all right, well, the little girl's got the mace in her room. She tried it, when Cecilia screamed or whatever it was. And she woke up and was holding the can. I'm like, all right, well, that's going to be a funny scene in the future, because I can imagine, somebody using mace or pepper spray on the guy. And I just imagine, okay, well, if the cameras aren't breaking, maybe he's got to breathe. He can't be in this suit, with a breathing apparatus or or not having any type of ventilation. So you gotta have
just hear
some way.
Darth Vader in the corner.
Yeah, there's got to. Well, that's what did it for me. It's when she was breathing the cold air and you could see the breath go out.
Oh, yeah.
I figured like, okay, well, it's got to be a breathable fabric or something. So when the pepper spray was there, I'm like, oh, this will be cool if you're able to spray the pepper spray at the guy, or at least catch him somehow.
Sure, but wouldn't it have been a cooler effect if it sprayed on the suit and you could see like his head or whatever floating there? Like that would have terrified Sydney just as much.
Right.
Well, and we would get that cool shot. Oh, man. Allison's going to lose it here in a second because we're going to talk about the paint.
Well, I got mad because I got mad as a dad and as somebody who's done like some minor home projects like painting and stuff. And I was just thinking like, you just fucked up the whole floor. God damn it.
Okay, first of all, that paint, the thinnest paint I've ever seen in my lifetime. It was literally like milk. Yes. Which milk paint is actually very thick. But that paint, I was like, what the hell kind of paint is this guy using to paint his house? And it was a good shot.
Because it's washable.
Right. Obviously. So it was a good shot. Like the scare there was great when she throws the paint. That's the first time you see, and it's the first glimmer you get of these like honeybee, like honeycomb shaped thing. I was like, what is this?
Oh man, and my whole audience freaked out at that jump scare.
Yes.
So effective.
Beautiful. And it was so well timed, and it wasn't a jump scare for the sake of a jump scare. Like it was just It was great. And then he runs away. And it takes her how long to get out of the damn attic? And she goes over to the front door, and then the water turns on. I feel like the water should have already been on if he was going to realistically rinse this paint off.
Right.
Because she walks over to the sink immediately after the water turns on. When did he have time to wash this paint off?
Well, and why is he pouring water on this suit?
I mean, maybe it's waterproof and he's just rinsing off the paint. Okay, cool. I'll buy it. But if the water had already been on, it would have explained the amount of time he needed to rinse this paint off of his suit.
Why didn't he go to the shower?
Something.
Why is he going to a fucking kitchen sink? Like half his body has been painted white. And he's got nothing to scrub it with.
Yeah.
I mean, is this a Dawn commercial? Like, is Dawn this strong? Because that's amazing.
Not to be confused with me.
No. It was such a missed opportunity. I feel like it was after something so brilliant, and then it moves into this scene that could have been a little better.
I'm glad that you said that, because when I did see the splattering of paint or almond milk or whatever that was all over there, I'm like, how the faucet just turned on, and there should have been, just like she saw the little drips of paint that went into the kitchen, there should have been drips of water mixed with paint, going towards the front door. So I mean, there were great things in this film, but and even the flaws that it had didn't undercut it. It just made you question, like, damn, there was a little bit more opportunity right here.
Yeah.
But again, it's not as bad as the glitch in Poltergeist.
That's true.
The bad editing in Poltergeist.
Oh boy. But no. So my scene where I have a problem with this film is when she cuts her arm. Right? Like she stabs herself in the wrist and she pulls it down and she's bleeding. And then there's this huge action sequence where we take out a bunch of security and whatever else. And then they restrain her, and they literally have their arms and their hands like pushing down where this cut is. And she's not reacting to it, and they're not reacting to the blood. And I was sitting there. Number one, I've worked in psych hospitals. I was impressed at their restraints. I was like, hey, you actually researched this and did it correctly. But two, I'm like, there's no fucking way that you're touching that blood. Mm-hmm. So I was pulled out right there. That was one of my biggest complaints.
And then she didn't continue to bleed out. She went down the road, not across the street. So I don't know if you're familiar with that saying. Like if you're gonna cut your arm,
this way to the hospital, this way to the morgue.
Yeah. So, and that was the thing, is like she started cutting. I was like, oh, I thought first, I was like, oh, why is she giving in? Like this is not in her character.
Right.
She's really trying to kill herself. Like, if you're just trying to make a statement, you go across if you want to make your statement.
Right.
But this was not a surface cut. This wasn't a cry for attention cut, as it's sometimes called by assholes. But like this was a deep stab. Like, she just whack. You know? So yeah, I was really bothered by that, and that it never came up again.
Yeah, I like the moment where I thought maybe like that's it. She's decided, you know what? I'd rather be dead than deal with this and deal with this baby and this whole situation. And it was kind of like her come to dead's better than this. But then she doesn't get her revenge. She doesn't get her comeuppance, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, that's not really in her character at this point. And then, you know, obviously she used it to get him, which I thought was great. But again, I was like, oh, she went really, really deep. She should still be bleeding for certain. I know what's in there. I know what's veins are right there. Like, she should definitely still be bleeding.
Or, I mean, you could have gone with the swerve and it could have been a red pen.
Yeah.
You know? But no, they didn't do that. So I don't know what's going on with this cut. But that was the thing that bothered me the absolute most in this film.
I think that cut was done, I guess, for the audience to have them cringe or I guess be a little bit grossed out by it. Just make them uncomfortable with that because of the way it was done, as opposed to, you know, really telling anything in the story based off, or at least having the cut itself carry over into the story. Because when it happened, my wife was sitting there and she's like, ugh, and I'm sitting there like, I guess she's trying to kill herself. And, you know, a few other people in the theater, they were just groaning because of the way it was being done. I'm sitting like, it's like, she's trying to quote unquote get his attention. I wouldn't be doing that, because what if he's not in the fucking room?
Man, wouldn't that have backfired?
That would have really backfired, yeah.
Jeez.
But I guess the brother had already told her, like, he's always like, he's there. He's always watching.
That's true. I want to know, what does this guy do when he has to pee? You know, like, when does he eat?
You know what I want to know? How did he get in the attic?
This is a great question.
Because she used a 12-foot tall ladder to get in the attic. How did he get in the attic?
Oh, you know what? Well, he would have put the attic in there before, right? Because he wasn't in there waiting for her. So I mean, he may have used.
At some point,
well, like, he was tall. Well, he was taller, so he may have been able to use the old ladder that oh gosh, I forgot his name. Jay that he was using to get up there and leave the phone and leave the knife and all the other stuff. And then put it back, because the ladder, the bigger ladder, was new.
You know what? I'll bet he did it when she goes to the job interview, because nobody would have been in the house.
True.
Okay. I could see that. Okay. I'll give him that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because, you know, we talked about the physical abuse and then, you know, hiding, at least in the suit and all these other things. Think about the depravity it takes to have somebody, or at least to steal things like someone's sketches for a job interview, because she's not taking the money and saying, oh, fuck it, I'm going to go live in Hawaii. I'm going to live my best life. This is going to be awesome. Hashtag, you know, whatever, you know, going on Instagram and trying to change her life and her scenery. She immediately was like, I'm going to give this kid some money for college, and I'm going to go get a job. Mm-hmm. She's getting $100,000 a month for the next 4 years. And her focus is not, oh, I'm going to go spend this money. It's, I'm going to give some money to this girl to help her out, you know, who's like my own kid, like a niece. I'm going to give her money to go to school. I'm going to buy something nice for, you know, the folks that have been helping me out. I'm going to get a ladder. I think she bought a bottle of champagne, and I'm sitting like, she's not looking at the money as, oh, it's mine, I'm going to fucking enjoy my life. She looks at it as, the money is something that's going to keep me connected to Adrian, and I really want nothing to do with it, which I thought was a cool thing to happen but not be said, because she goes and interviews for a job, highly qualified for it, and he's aware of what she's doing with her life and is like, oh, no, fuck you, I'm going to take your sketches and hide them.
Right, because he's still controlling her.
Right.
Although I will say him taking her sketches was probably the nicest thing he's ever done for her, because
they were not. She wasn't getting that job.
Well, the guy who was doing did you notice all of the architects were women in his office?
He was creepy.
And he was a creeper. Like, that was literally probably the nicest thing Adrian could have ever done for her, was make sure she did not get that job.
No kidding. Do all the beautiful ladies like?
Yeah, I was like, oh, get out, run away, abort.
I was like, you just keep attracting these guys. But no, I'm also thinking the brother could have done it. Like, if Adrian went to the job interview with her, for instance, the brother could have easily come to the house and put the stuff in the attic. I'm just trying to figure this out.
Definitely could.
But yeah, another aspect to that is it could just be like, maybe this was her dream job. Like the things she wanted to do that he wouldn't let her do.
Right.
And he's still keeping her from doing it.
Yeah, it definitely plays that way with the amount, like the drawings and stuff that she had, and the way that she was kind of devastated. Like, this definitely plays in the way that, like, this was like everything to her. This was the career she would have had, or this is the career she had and he made her quit, or something like that along those lines, where he's already controlled her in not having it, and now he's continuing to control her in not having it.
What do you guys think about the fact that this movie drops during the Me Too phase of life? Like, this hits so big and it's hitting so many things, and you have Weinstein's shit hitting the fan last week. And, like, I don't think they could have timed this movie better on purpose than the way that it occurred.
Well, I think, and I'm sorry, Allison, if you had something, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Just eat him alive later.
No, please do. As a man and as a dude, I have a real problem with guys acting as though Me Too is a problem. And I just read a story earlier today about some school hosting dances, and their policy is that if you're asked to dance as a girl, and I guess in both ways, but it seems to be more so to spare the boys' feelings.
Yeah.
But if you're a boy and you ask a girl to dance at any of the school dances, they're compelled to comply and dance with them. So they're basically telling them that they can't say no, which is a horrible, here comes my rant, which is a horrible fucking thing to tell children, because children need to have autonomy with their bodies. And my 5-year-old daughter has already been instructed, if anybody ever touches her and she does not want to be touched, or touches her in a way that she shouldn't be touched, she has all power and support from me to hurt that person. And I don't like, at least with the schools themselves, their response to sexual assault or consent is, well, we're just going to make it easier for the kids so nobody's feelings get hurt. You know what? Some of these people do not need to teach kids that it's okay to accept someone's advances when they don't want their advances, because that's just setting them up for more confusion with respect to the roles that at least within gender and within sexual identity, like who they can open up to. And if you start saying that they should be able to, or I'm sorry, they should open up to everybody, and they shouldn't say no, then you're going to make things so much harder for them when they need to say no, which is whenever they feel like they don't want to be bothered with somebody else's advances. Because then that leads to situations where young ladies especially don't feel comfortable talking about the abuse that they're dealing with, whether it happens to be physical, psychological, emotional, or sexual, because they've been told this is what abuse actually looks like. This is what sexual assault actually looks like, when they're not being given the freedom to tell somebody no, or my personal preference, fuck no. I don't want to dance with you. I don't want to drink. I don't want to hang out. I don't want to get in your car. I don't want to go home with you. I don't want to be around you. And the sad thing is, along with all the rest of this, is that there are women out there. I'm sorry to speak for women, Allison. There are women out there who I've been in contact with who've shared their stories online in public and news features that say they're afraid to tell someone no because piece of shit men are so unpredictable and might get violent with them. So they don't tell them no, or they're afraid of telling them no because they want to actually survive. Now, right. For any guys who are listening, if you're one of these people who's like, well, I've been nice to girls, they shouldn't be afraid of me. I hate to use Louis C.K. as an example, but Louis C.K. had a really good bit where he talked about why women should never trust men, which is ironic that it's coming from him, that women should never trust men because
heavy research.
Yeah, because basically men are fucking sharks. Why would you date or be around something that is physically or typically physically stronger than you and is concerned with, some type of sexual conquest or doing any type of thing with you that might take control of your body away from you? It's like, you women are brave and crazy for having to deal with men. And men, if your idea is you've got to be a fucking alpha, which doesn't exist, you got to be a fucking alpha, you got to, women shouldn't say no to you, and no actually means yes, you're a piece of shit. I'm sorry, I'll stop. There you go, Allison.
No, I agree, and honestly, as I myself am a woman, as a female, as that gender, I, from a very young age, learned that instead of saying no, we make an excuse, because saying no can get you hurt. Saying no can get backlash. Saying no might hurt their feelings, and you don't want to hurt their feelings. So if you make an excuse, then you're more likely to be okay. When in reality, even making an excuse, it's not going to save you. It's not going to protect you any more than saying no. And it sucks. Like, it really does, to say, oh, well, oh, no, I can't. I already have a boy. Like, do you know, like, through most of my early 20s, I had fake wedding rings that I would take with me just in case I needed it.
Holy
because
shit.
I needed an excuse sometimes. Like, those are things that I think women think about that I don't know that men know we think about or that we have to deal with, or like things that we prep that in our purse. Most women have probably a set of fake wedding rings, or just the idea of like carrying your keys between your fingers, like that is a natural instinct. That's how you carry them at all times.
Mm.
And it just...
That pisses me off even more.
And it's something that people don't really talk about. It's just something that, like, is said kind of in private, like, oh, just do it this way. Or, oh, yeah, just do this way. And it kind of gives, like, secret knowledge that's passed along of, like, this is how you protect yourself.
The only thing that I like about it being secret knowledge is maybe it doesn't tip off the assholes that need some keys to the face. Because I kind of want to see them get hit. In answer to what you just said about maybe men don't think about this, my answer to that personally, I don't want to speak for everybody, is it's not something that I thought about until I talked to women. And now I think about it all the time. Right. Like, I could be at, I don't know, I'm just going to make up a situation. Maybe I'm outside of a convention and I'm just standing outside enjoying the night. Some female is alone standing 20 feet from me. You can't pay me enough to go talk to her unless she talks first, because I don't want to instill that fear. I don't want to walk over and make her think, what does this asshole want? Like, I'm staying where the fuck I am and being quiet, because that's what I've learned listening to women.
Yes. In regards to the whole, like, Me Too movement and everything with this movie, I think it was very strategically planned to come out when it did. It portrays things that are still aren't necessarily being talked about, because it doesn't show so much of the physical abuse, because it shows more of the controlling aspect of his abuse. That's stuff that still isn't being talked about. Even so much as with, let's talk about one of my third least favorite characters. Let's talk about her sister, Emily. Fuck that bitch.
Oh my gosh.
Because she is one of those people that would say, why didn't you just leave? I'm a strong person. I would have left. Right. My experiences are obviously how everyone else is supposed to have their experiences as well, and your experiences are invalid because you didn't do what I would have done.
Even the way she forces her or tries to force her to tell her what happened.
Yes.
Like, she is such an uncaring bitch.
Wait, before you even go there.
Yeah.
This is when I first hated her. When she's trying to escape, when Cecilia's escaping, and Emily is in the car, what's going on? What are you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. This whole fumbling moment where she knows why she's there. Cecilia gets in the car. Adrian shows up, and she doesn't fucking push the gas pedal. And I was sitting there like, what the fuck is wrong with you? This guy is half naked. Your sister obviously is she's meeting you in the middle of the fucking woods on a trail. And
she's late.
Yeah.
And I just realized we both just spoke over you and cut you off. So let's go back.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We did exactly what we're not supposed to be doing.
But no, that's exactly it. That was the very first impression. She was late. This woman's life is literally dependent upon her being there at this time. And she was late.
Well, and she was so late that it actually fucked with my head, because when Cecilia's on that trail, on that gravel road in the middle of the trees, and she starts looking around, my wife and I are talking to each other like, the fuck is her problem? Run. Why are you stopping?
Oh, the same way. I was like, get in the woods. You hide in the woods. You go on the other side of the road. You hide in the woods and you wait. And when the car started approaching, I was like, oh, no, it's him. No, it's him. No, it's him. No, it's him. No, it's him.
I honestly thought it was him. And I'm like, she's about to fucking die. I know the whole movie's about her surviving in some invisible dude. It's like, he's about to fucking kill her right here. Actually, I even thought like, oh, he's going to get her in the car and like beat her or something. But yeah, the sister pissed me off from the beginning. And then I would qualify her as an enabler as well, because she's strong at that initial meeting that they have about Adrian's estate. But when she thinks that her sister sent an email, her sister's with a controlling guy, or has been with a controlling guy for the past couple of years. All of a sudden, Emily gets some strange email where she says, oh, I hate you. I've never enjoyed having you as a sister. All these negative things in the email. And then for me, I'm questioning, like, well, if your sister called you for help and she's talked to you and texted you, wouldn't you think it's a little fucking odd that she sent you an email?
Right. And the fact that she never even questioned the motives behind this email, that this is not something in Cecilia's character. This is not something that she would have said to her sister at any point in time, because she already said she's afraid of her sister. It's not in her character, even as an email. It's not like to not even question, wow, this is not like her. And to just be so butthurt over it that you just think about your own feelings on it and completely cut her off.
I can't believe you sent me that email. Now I'm going to close my door.
Yeah.
Bye.
Well, and she's sitting there going, no, I didn't send this. Let me explain.
Right. And
she can't even give her 2 seconds. I could be pissed as fuck at you. I'm still going to listen to your side. And then I'm going to be like, yeah, bye, bitch. But like I'm still going to give you that. I don't understand why a sibling wouldn't. Like, if they had a relationship where that was really the final straw, she shouldn't have been picking her up to begin with.
Okay. Now, I'm not done with my Emily hate at all. But when they showed up at the restaurant, the way she treated the waitstaff immediately made me think in my head, I hope she dies soon. I really hope she dies soon, because you have this nice waiter in this nice restaurant, this more upscale restaurant, basically say, hi, come, welcome here. Have you been here? We've been in a restaurant before. We order food, we eat it, and we leave. Bye. And I'm thinking like, well, fuck you. And while she's sitting there, the knife lifts up from the table, slashes her throat. And I think I was the only one, because I'm that kind of person. I chuckled in the theater. I was like,
Me too.
That's what you fucking get for treating the waitstaff like that. I was only mad because the knife then got put in Cecilia's hand.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn it. It's like Oh, why? I don't mind the sister being dead, but why does she have to pay for it?
This is where I think Emily's character is a complete misstep. The impact that this would have if she had been the caring, supportive sister this whole time. Like, holy shit. None of us would have laughed. None of us would have been excited Emily was dead. Like, it would have been heart-wrenching that your one and only support, well, I guess she has James in them, but like your main support, your sister, is gone. And I really feel like this characterization of Emily throughout the movie was a misstep because of that. There's a lot of other ways they could have written her off to not be, able to take her into the house or different things like that.
I wish that they explained that she couldn't go to Emily's because Adrian knew where Emily lived. That's why she didn't want her to come over.
But I'm saying,
follow her.
She didn't have to be mad at her and cut her out of her life. I think this scene would have such a huge impact if she'd been caring and supportive instead.
Which brings us to the exact opposite, which was young girl's name, Vicky? Sydney. Oh gosh, I was way off. When I see her, my first thought when I saw her was like, holy shit, the kid from Wrinkle in Time grew up.
Yes.
I'm like, what is she, 30 now? Because it's like she's 2 feet taller and just, she was just scary tall and grown up. But my thought was like, please don't do anything to this child. She's too nice. She's too sweet. Please don't do. And I was glad that, and I hate to say this, I'm glad that it was only a hit and not, Adrian like strangled her in her sleep and killed her or anything like that.
He fucks her up at the end.
For lack of trying, yeah.
Well, yeah. It was just one of those things where I looked at it, I'm like, I'm glad it was somewhat. It wasn't like what happened to Emily, is what I'm saying. Like there was no moment like that, but you even have Sydney able to fight back when this is taking place, which is great. Because now there's no doubt, there is a fucking invisible dude trying to attack her. But this guy, at least both of the guys, they understand what her weakness is, and it's she needs people, or at least needs some connection with somebody else. And what a lot of abusers do is they isolate the person that they're with to where they then hopefully burn their bridges with their friends and family, or at least their friends and family get fatigue of helping them or being around for them. But they push those people away to where they're alone and they're isolated, and the only thing that they can do at that point is hopefully, if you're the abuser, they hopefully come back to you, and they're so dependent on you because you're the one who's showing them affection and attention that they stay with you, which is a whole new level, or a whole other level of being a sociopath.
Yeah, that's like step 1 in the abuser's handbook is isolate your victim.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. If they don't have anyone else, they need you, no matter how bad it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I want to come back to something you said earlier, because this is a big point for me. You always hear people say, why don't they just leave? And that is literally my biggest pet peeve with society in regards to domestic violence. To me, it's worse than ignoring it. It's worse than condoning it. It's literally, this is your fault. You should have left. Right. I don't have to do anything to fix this. Society, it's not our problem. You're the one who didn't fucking leave. And why don't they just leave has been a thorn in my side for many, many years working where I work. Do one of you want to walk us through your reasons for why people don't leave?
Dependency, emotional attachment, because regardless of if they're abuser or not, you can still love them. Nowhere else to turn to. There's the list goes on, and honestly, there doesn't need to be a reason even. There doesn't even need to be a reason for why you don't leave. Every single person is their own person. They're their own entity, and they have their reason. And it doesn't have to be your reason. It doesn't have to be the next person's reason. And it doesn't have to be a reason at all. If they're in a situation that they can't get out of, or they feel that they can't get out of, or they feel it's too hard, that's it. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter why. Just help them.
I love that answer. That's actually where I was going with this. So thank you for just hitting it instead. I always come back to money and a place to go. And like most people can't just come up with a deposit for a new place. And then there's is he going to come after me? He doesn't need a fucking invisibility suit to do that. I don't know if you guys know this, but restraining orders are a piece of paper and they're really fucking easy to walk through. Mm-hmm. And I really just hate this fucking concept of why don't they just leave? And I love what you just said, that there doesn't have to be a reason because no one has to answer to you about why they didn't leave. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Right. I'm going to change, I guess, the tone of this.
Thank you.
Because I want to talk about that fucking house.
Oh, the unnecessary house.
Well, not necessarily that, but just the creep factor with the house that Adrian had bought, built, whatever. That the windows are everywhere in this house, and in a lot of the movies that I've seen where there's like an abusive spouse, they have those houses with just these endless windows. And all I can think about it is that issue of that you don't have any privacy, at least for the victim. There's no privacy. And how big of a statement that is, that she's living in this house that's somewhat isolated, has that big fucking wall that's around it. And just this idea of, she's in prison. It's I'm not sure if either one of you are familiar with it, but the idea of the panopticon, because she's there, there are windows everywhere, there are cameras everywhere, there's this wall that keeps this place secure. There's nowhere, for the most part, that she can escape to for privacy in the home, and because someone can always look in. And if she leaves, there are cameras everywhere. There's alarm systems. There's surveillance equipment everywhere. So it's even when she escapes initially, before she returns to the home the first time, when she escapes initially, she doesn't know who could be watching her at any time, because the cameras are, one, the cameras are in the house, but then two, if somebody, if from a distance can look into the house, she could be being watched, whether it's Adrian or somebody else. But she knows where how this works, to when she drugs Adrian so she can leave, she finds the cameras as far as, the ones that can prevent her escape from being seen, and she shuts everything down except for the one that's looking at him, so that she can watch him to make sure that she can get away. So, that house to me I saw the house as being another villain, or at least another aspect of control, and kind of for lack of a better term, a torture device that he uses with her, to where he always knows where she is, always, can always see her anywhere in the house. These clean lines that you have throughout the house, and every point that they go from the beginning to this return to the house and then the final scene in the house, every time they go in, the house creeps me out to no end, because of all the sight lines that you have, and the ways that people can see in, or you can just see out, but there's no privacy that's there. And she learns quickly how to work within that world that he's created, and then eventually how to get that world to work against him.
I agree. Yeah, I think the house pushes that isolation narrative so strongly, because it's the only house out there. There's nothing else around. Mm-hmm. That entire road is empty. It's surrounded by woods on one side and cliffs and water on the other. It is open. It is all glass, so he can watch every move she makes at all times, no matter where he is. In addition to that, if he needs it, there's also cameras. So it does push that thing of there's never a moment that she feels like she's alone or safe or not being watched.
Can I just say how much I love that you just said it's the only house out there? This is really off topic, but that kept coming up in Ian's episode about Last House on the Left. And I was literally sitting here giggling to myself when you said it's the only house out there. I just had to throw that out to entertain everybody.
It is the last house on the left.
Is it the last house on the left or the last house on the right in this movie?
I think it's on the left, because when the Uber driver, whoever, comes up the road, well, I don't know. It's the only one that's at the end of the road. I don't know if it's on the left or the right necessarily. It's the only one out there, though.
That's hilarious to me, though. Jumping back into the story, we're coming up towards the end here. So we have this big scene where the Invisible Man, basically, she's told Adrian's going to keep attacking people you love because he can't attack you because you're pregnant and he needs you. And she instantly realizes that means Sydney. She calls James, sends him to the house, and she goes there as well. And we have this scene where, we get the part we talked about earlier where Sydney maces the Invisible Man. And then we have the big fight scene between those two. And she's getting choked out. And then James, her dad, arrives. And he has no idea what's going on. And the fight breaks out with him as well. He gets really fucked up. And then our Cecilia shows up. And she gets the gun and she just starts blasting the Invisible Man in the chest. And we get the big reveal that it's not Adrian. It's his brother Tom here. What did you guys think in that moment? Did you like that? Were you expecting that one to be Tom? Like, where were you with this?
So the moment that the Invisible Man shows up at the house to get Sydney, and he's walking in there and he's going to get her, I knew at that moment that was not Adrian, because his suit was glitching and that suit was not glitching.
I did not even notice that. That is great.
Yes, I was like, his suit should be, because I was like, oh, she's going to see him. No, why isn't she?
Right, because of the hospital or the
yes,
the
he had just gone in
facility.
the fight. They just had the big fight where she stabbed him, and they were in the rain and all of that. And I was like, oh, if he makes it there, Sydney's gonna see him, and she's not a weak girl. Like, she's already proven in the movie that she's willing to react.
Right.
But she didn't, because the suit didn't glitch. And I was like, oh, it's not Adrian. And
wow, that's a great
obviously
catch.
The only other person would have been Tom. That's the only person that we'd been introduced thus far that I knew was working with Adrian.
Right. Oh, before we go further on that one, I did remember something that did bother me about that scene when they're leaving the hospital. You have Cecilia call. Well, first there's a car accident that gets started because Adrian drives. He steals a car, drives off, and then causes an accident with oncoming traffic or an oncoming vehicle. The guy runs into a car. The other motorist immediately gets out of the car. And Cecilia says, fuck it, I'm taking your vehicle and driving off and following him. My problem with that scene is, and again, this may be overthinking it, but then it would kill the ending, is that she starts driving, calls James, or at least calls to, at least give a heads up, but doesn't say, hey, I'm chasing this guy. He's in this vehicle. And then hope that the police would, pull him over and see that there's an invisible person in the vehicle, or at least somebody with a glitching suit. Because I'm sitting there, I'm like, why didn't she just fucking call and say, like, there's an Amber Alert? There's a kid that's
You're literally talking to the police when you call James.
It's like, hey, I see the car in front of me. It's a BMW. It's X5 or whatever it was. It's an SUV and it's got this plate number. Hurry, he's getting away. Could have been any number of things that went there. And I just thought there's like, no, you know what? They need some resolution where they have to have a fight at the house and kill the Invisible Man, and then something else should happen. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's awesome. Oh, man. So, Allison, back to what you were saying.
Yeah.
So you knew it was Tom right away. That is such a great catch. I didn't even notice that until you said it right now. That's great on your part, and that's glitching. Awesome on Lee's part as well, writing it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely made, because it's definitely a really good misdirect, and it takes just that one. That's the only thing that would have given away that it wasn't Adrian, that it was someone else. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of piece together that if Adrian's not there, he went home because he has to fix his suit. His suit's messed up.
Right.
And so he calls Tom, sends Tom over in Tom's suit. So then we know there's at least 3 suits. Who knows how many this guy actually made? Because now we know there's at least 3 because she hid one, he has one, and Tom has one.
Can I say how weird it is that this suit hangs on, I don't even know what to call it, whatever holds the suit when she finds it. Like, that's so weird to me. It just seems so unnecessary.
Maybe it's docked, like it's a charging station.
Huh. Well, then she should be glad it doesn't run out of charge later.
Right. She takes it off and leaves it somewhere.
Wouldn't that have been weird? But yeah, so let's go back to this. So she shoots Tom, and he's down, he's dead. She pulls off the mask, and we have this reveal. And everyone's like, oh, everyone in the film is like, oh, this makes sense. See, we told you Adrian didn't come back. And they're like, it's over. And well, I love this. Yeah. Well,
I was gonna say James has this moment where they're like, it's over, you know, and she's sitting there and thinking like, no, Adrian's got something to do with, like, she's still convinced. She's like, no, he's got something to do with this. He knows how to control people. He knows how to misdirect you, all this stuff. And James is sitting there like, look, just fucking go with this story, and you get out of, you know, you don't have any legal issues. You don't have any legal problems that you have to worry about. Just fucking go with this story. And I love how he is kind of like, I'm with you, but I'm still thinking as a cop. Mm-hmm. If you still come up with this, oh no, it's Adrian doing this shit, you're still going to be in trouble for, you know, the stuff that could be linked to you, or at least people think that they saw you do.
I just love that even when she's proven that everything she said was right, they don't listen to her. Mm-hmm. Don, jump back in. Take us through the end.
It's discovered that Adrian, from I guess a SWAT team going to the house, they find Adrian walled up, I guess in the basement or some part of the house, tied up. And what's cool is, as an audience member, as a viewer, you start to question, was the brother the one who was doing it? Or is this some setup to make it look like Adrian had nothing to do with it, so he can get off scot-free? And you start to question a couple of, at least a little bit, as far as where is this going, and is this the resolution in the story? And as you said, James, earlier, we don't need the whole she's attacking the fake monster. We need her to confront the real monster. And we finally have this moment where she's able to, get some resolution or some closure with him by meeting him at the house.
So she agrees to meet with Adrian, right? She's heading to the house, and she's very dressed up. She is doing everything in her power this time to control this situation. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I want to point out that I loved most about the setup to this scene is earlier she talks about how he controlled what she ate. And when she gets there, he's got this fucking like buffet going on, mm-hmm. and he gives her choices of what to eat, right? And that seems very like it's gaslighting. It's, I'm letting you make choices now, right? Who chose the buffet?
Right.
Who chose the choices? So yeah, Allison, you want to take us through this scene? Because I know this is the best scene, right?
Right. So this is so as you're saying, they're false choices. He's making it seem like, oh, you are in control. You can, oh, what would you like? Whatever. And then when she chooses steak, oh, great choice, great. Oh, and he's just so reassuring. And then when she's sitting there and she's like, if I'm gonna have this baby, we're gonna start on a clean slate, and I need you to tell me the truth. And I didn't do anything. Just still sticking with his I didn't. And of course, the conversation is being recorded because she has James outside to try and catch him in a lie or to have him admit the truth and whatnot. And just this whole time, he is so steadfast that he's not lying and that this is what really happened. And no, you're mistaken. It wasn't me. And everything I did before. I'm so sorry. And it goes back to that narrative of the letter that her sister wouldn't let the brother read of, I'm so sorry. It'll never happen again. I know what I did was wrong. And you're just like, oh God, just don't let him speak. Like it's literally like vomit induced. Like it's disgusting listening to him try to justify what he's done and how he's never going to do it again. And then for him to go over to her, and the very first thing that like really tips it off is when he says the word surprise in his sentence. Because it goes back to the phone call that he made to her and the text of surprise. Like, and she knows in her heart of hearts, Nick, no, I am not crazy. He is not going to make me feel like I'm wrong or I'm crazy. I know what I know, and he has to, this is it. I'm done. And this is, I think, when she really forms her plan, because she excuses herself. She goes to the bathroom. She chooses a bathroom that's in the bedroom. I don't know of a house that doesn't have a bathroom that's not in a bed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't most houses have bathrooms that are not necessarily, especially that big of a house? But she specifically
that house is definitely going to have the bathroom that's next to the,
like a guest bathroom. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
But she specifically chooses the bathroom that's in the bedroom, and this is where her whole plan's got. She's like, you know what? I know it. He's not going to admit it. There's nothing I'm going to do. He's not going to admit it. This is not going to work with James. And then she remembers her suit that she's stashed away. And all we get to see is now this camera footage, because his cameras are back up and working, of course, because he has to control everything. And you just get to see him sitting at a table, waiting for her to return, and his own hand pick up a knife and slit his own throat. And I cheered. I was like, yes, this is the perfect comeuppance for him. Like, this is the perfect ending for this monster.
It's amazing. She used every one of his own things against him, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
And I just want to go on record apologizing to Lee Wanell for thinking that he'd be dumb enough to make it the brother. Because this is the fucking scene I needed. And it's even better than if we got to watch her do it. It's the fact that she kicks it up to his level. She does the kill that he did to Emily, and she does, she induces pain through the invisible suit. Like, this ending is fucking brilliant, and I love it so much.
I love that she goes back, she changes back into her clothes, she comes out, oh my gosh, immediately calls the police, because that's what you're supposed to do. Oh no, gets on and takes 2 steps back out of camera view and essentially says, fuck you, while he's laying in agony, dying on the floor. Like, it was literally, it was the best. It was the best moment.
I love that she knows the exact spot to stand.
Yes.
Like, that brings back everything he ever did, because that's why she knows it. It brings back all the time she spent there, and she's learned to use it against him. And fuck, I love that.
It was great.
It would have been a more fitting ending for that meeting.
No.
And the final thing that makes this ending so great is that the dog Zeus goes with her.
Yes.
Like, she wanted to take Zeus so badly at the beginning, and she gets to at the end. All right, so do you guys have anything else you want to add to this?
No, there's something I do want to add, but I just want to make sure that we get it in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at the end as far as our sign-outs, and that is for anyone who is a victim of domestic abuse, or anyone who knows someone who is going through that. You can call 1-800-799-7233. That's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They specialize in helping victims. I believe the website is hotline.org. Once again, that number is 1-800-799-7233. And I believe they even have a chat available through text and through their website if you're not comfortable actually speaking on the phone.
Awesome. Allison, do you have anything you want to add?
I had 2 things. I wanted to, real quick, just touch on the relationship between her and James as her friend. that how brilliantly and beautifully it was portrayed that they are just friends. That's a thing that exists in this world, that you can have people of opposite sexes or people who would typically be attracted to each other be just friends without any tension, without those. So many movies stories will push that narrative. Oh, they secretly like each other. Oh, this could, like, no, they were just friends. And I thought that was beautiful. Like, that friendship was perfectly done.
Oh, you made me think of something else, Allison.
Yeah.
The idea that they didn't have him save her.
Yes.
Like, she was fully empowered. Yeah, she saves him, saves his daughter. They gave her full agency and full empowerment, and they did not undercut her by having him come in. You know, even the time that he attempts to save her, as far as with legal issues, and saying, like, just say this, you won't have to worry about it. She immediately dismisses, says, no, I know what's going on here. I'm going to fix this.
Yep.
Yeah, so I really thought that was just really well done, and you just don't see that enough, where a friendship is just a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And then little things to look for in the movie that I kind of noticed was when she first sees the mannequin in Sydney's room, the fedora and the trench coat, I was like, oh, Invisible Man, right?
Right.
Yep. That's his costume. And then when she's in the hospital, they linger on a burn victim who's all wrapped up in gauze, and there's no reason for them to do it, but they do, because that's how he would wrap himself to be seen, was with all the gauze. And so I was like, oh, those are nice little nods to Invisible Man there. But I thought that was I just thought that was interesting especially when they linger on that burn. I was like, what is the significance of this burn victim? And then it wasn't until later I was like, oh, because it doesn't ever come back up in the story. That's literally the only reason that it's there is that little nod.
I thought that was extremely well done. It's such a good way to, like you said, nod to the past while also acknowledging we're doing something really different here.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic.
Well,
I don't have anything else.
Bacon dancing in the background.
And now you're cut out of the rest of the podcast. So oh, man. All right. Well, I suppose we'll wrap this up then. So, Allison, thank you so much for coming on the show. I enjoyed our conversations online before we even started recording today, and you really hit me with some stuff that made me look even more in depth at this film. I already loved it, but I can't wait to go back and look at things like the suit not glitching. So that must be Tom. That's so great. I appreciated your analysis here, and I really hope you come back again, because I've enjoyed this greatly.
Oh, thank you. I absolutely, I'm so excited that you invited me, and I'm definitely looking forward to another one maybe that I'll pick next time. Not that this was a great pick, but
we all have our favorites.
Right.
We all have our babies.
That's right. All right, cool. Well, so this was a bonus episode, but we'll be back Monday as regularly scheduled. Shane Keene will be on the show talking about Jennifer's Body. So that'll be an interesting follow-up right after this. Mm-hmm. It'll obviously be very different with three guys talking. So I'm very fascinated by how that's going to work.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciated it. It like James said, it definitely gave some enlightening perspective on a few issues that, we saw a little bit of the surface, but you added a lot of depth with it.
Thanks.
Awesome. So until next time, as always, I am James Sabata.
And I am Don Guillory.
And we'll see you next week here on the Necronomicon.com.